Good morning, students. Welcome to the class of General English. In today's class, we are going to begin with the first story, Out of Business by R.K. Narayan. In my first class of the story, I have told you about what the story is about. In today's class, I'm going to take a detailed analysis of the story along with the few difficult words that we encounter while reading the text. Now remember, students, R.K. Narayan is an Indian novelist and he is one of the Trinities. Trinities is three. We have three prominent Indian novelists, Mulk Raj Anand, Raja Rao and R.K. Narayan. The story centers around Rama Rao, who's the protagonist or the main character of the story. Now Rama Rao, as the story begins, was employed in a gramophone company. I will read out the few lines from the text so that your understanding is clear. Little over a year ago, Rama Rao went out of work when a gramophone company, of which he was the Malgudi agent, went out of existence. He had put into that agency the little money he had inherited as security. For 5 years, his business brought him enough money, just enough to help him keep his wife and children in good comfort. He built a small bungalow in the extension and was thinking of buying an old baby car for his use. Now, when the story begins, Rama Rao is so shown as a person who is out of his business, who has literally been thrown out of the job because of some financial error, because of some financial collapse. He worked in a gramophone company and the little bit that he could earn, he invested in purchasing a bungalow and he could save a little bit for his wife and children. And one day, it was a bolt from the blue. Bolt from the blue is a phrasal verb which means something unexpected. The crash came, the financial crash. A series of circumstances in the world of trade, commerce, banking and politics was responsible for it. The gramophone company, which had its factory somewhere in Lahore, crashed, which was itself the result of a Bombay financier's death. The financier was drawing downhill when his car flew off sideways and came to rest 300 feet below the road. Now, this particular paragraph in the story is description of how the events, they changed immediately, all of a sudden, without nobody knowing it, because of the use of the phrase bolt from the blue, which is something unexpected. So the agency in Malgudi stopped functioning because of a financial crash that happened somewhere else, and because of that particular event, all the events were connected and all of a sudden this came to a standstill, the gramophone company in which Rama Rao was working. And then Rama Rao, the third paragraph says, Rama Rao suddenly found himself in the streets. So Rama Rao was literally on the roads. Literally on the roads means that he was simply one day he was in the business and the second day he was out of the business. That means when the company crashed, when the company was closed, Rama Rao was left jobless. First, Rama Rao could not understand the significance of the collapse. But later he realized when the prices and everything kept on shifting, he realized that he had practically no job. He had nothing to do and he was simply like a person who was jobless. So Rama Rao, he tried some measures of economy. The wife, she had a cook first and she had a few servants and the children were studying in the fashionable nursery school. So to cut on the expenditure, the wife, she removed all the servants. The students were shifted from the fashionable nursery school to some other ordinary school. And Rama Rao himself applied for over a dozen applications a day. And everywhere, wherever he used to go for the job or wherever he used to go for the interview, he was disappointed at the end of it because all of them said that you didn't have the required experience for it, and sometimes they said that you were a little overage for the kind of job that we're offering. And every time the reply was the same. What a pity, Rama Rao, I'm awfully sorry. There is nothing at present. If there is an opportunity, I will certainly remember you. So these were the words by which, every time Rama Rao returned home disappointed. It was the same story everywhere. He returned home in the evening. The wife and the children used to wait at the gate, and the disappointment, the sheer, a sorrow, a tinge of sorrow which was there on the Ramarao's face was an indication for the wife that today again he has returned home without having a job to himself. And naturally, Ramarao, when he came home, disgusted, when he came home a little disappointed, he made it a point to cheer his family members by hello, hello, how are you, and with all these words. But they didn't last long. And finally, to change his things, Ramarao moved from a bigger bungalow to a smaller one to cut on the expenses that they were putting in. And slowly, they were, being left with little cash in hand. Now, the only source of income that they had was a small rent that they were getting from their house in the extension. And they sometimes shuddered to think of what would happen to them if the tenant would suddenly leave. So, halfway of the story, we come to know that Ramarao is suddenly, on the streets without a job. He is desperately looking for means and measures in which he can find his job. Now, when all this is happening, Ramarao suddenly he comes across a journal in the Jubilee reading room. It was called The Captain, and it consists of 4 pages, and all of them were devoted to crossword puzzles. It offered every week a first prize of 4,000 rupees. So, visiting the library, going through the papers, suddenly Ramarao is struck with this particular kind of a thing where he notices that there is a complete paper of the crossword puzzle, and he decides on start filling this crossword puzzle, because he had this in his mind that probably if I am successful in even taking one prize of it, it is going to fetch me 4,000 rupees. So till here in the story, we have Ramarao being put out of the job, Ramarao's wives and the children's reaction and the way they adjust to the new surroundings and the circumstances and the change of income that they experience, and how Ramarao is desperately wanting to get a job but returns home disappointed every time. And then what does he do? He thinks of filling the crossword puzzle. So students, this much so for the class today. In tomorrow's class, we are going to take the remaining part of the story. Thank you.